there, it's Sarah from Paper Lovely. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be working with an art impression stamp, and this is a really cute grouping of some trick-or-treaters who have very fearful looks on their faces. You're sort of left to imagine, off scene what could possibly be causing those faces. But when I saw this, I was actually just looking through eBay for some different Halloween stamps, and I just had to get it right away. So there are some available around, and I will link to any that I can find for you. What I'm doing here is working on some Arches cold press paper. I've trimmed that to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I'm using Versamark ink to stamp that, and then Recollections black embossing powder. I'm going to take my heat gun to that, and here I'm taping it down to my board. I'm going to be using my Kuretake watercolors today, and this took me about probably a little over 2 hours to create. So I have chopped it quite a bit and sped it up very fast, but you can see the process. So for those of you who enjoy watching the coloring, here you go. And for those of you who don't, feel free to fast forward. I decided to create a night sky background behind my characters there, so I'm using some Grumbacher's liquid Frisket, and I'm just going to paint that all over the image to make sure I'm clearly covering everything. It sort of gets a rubberized texture to it, and it will repel the water as you add the background. Here I'm working on that night sky, and I'm using a very wet on wet technique for this. I use a lot more water when I'm working on a background or a more solid space than I do when I'm working on the small characters or the smaller area. Here I'm going to remove that frisket from the bottom portion so I can start working on the ground. And there's just a few little areas in between their hands and feet that I also had to remove. And when doing that, I got a little bit over the edge. So here I'm just going to go back again, and I'll just mask off part of the sky so that I don't run my ground into that, and then touch up any little areas around the characters that I need to. And here I'm going to work on filling in the grass portion. You'll notice I did save a little of one of the blues that I blended together on my little palette I have up there, and I will also save some of the green. That's so I can do some touch-ups around the edges once I pull away the frisket. I wanted to add some stars to that night sky, so here I am using some Mr. Huey's opaque white, and I'm just gonna place that off on a stamp block there, and then I will use my brush just to sort of flick that off the edge and create those stars in the sky. I also did just place a piece of computer paper across the bottom to make sure I didn't get any stars in the grass. Now here I'm working on pulling away that frisket, and you'll see I had it very thin. You always want to work really thinly with this, and I was having trouble with my brush. I was having trouble with it bubbling. So you'll see at the beginning where I was thinner, I didn't have too much trouble. When I got to the ghost character and afterwards, I ended up getting a little bit of bleeding that came through the product. So up on the little dinosaur guy's head, and then also a little bit in the ghost, I'm pointing out there that there was some blue that came through from the sky. So I was very frustrated at that moment. Here you can see that I was able to fix it. As Bob Ross says, there are only ever happy accidents, although this did not feel like one at the time. I've left out the footage of me doing the corrections because the majority of it was simply me putting down water, trying to wipe away color, more water, trying to wipe away more color, and then finally, once I had gotten off everything that I could, I added some bangs to the little boy with the dinosaur suit, and I went over the ghost again with more of that Mr. Huey's opaque white. I've used the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die to trim out my picture to 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I've also trimmed some black cardstock down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I just wanted a sliver of both the orange and black showing as a border. The card base is MFT's pineapple cardstock. So I'm just going to attach that black. And then I've popped my scene up on some Scotch foam tape. And I'll place that on the card front. There was no sentiment included in with these characters, so I decided to use that trick or treat sentiment again from the Lawn Fawn costume party stamp set, as well as this jack-o'-lantern stamp. It's really cute. It comes with a pumpkin, and then it gives you 2 different faces that you can choose from to stamp inside the pumpkin. And that completes our card for today. Close-ups of the card, as well as a full list of supplies, can be found at my blog post listed in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a comment or a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.